welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon.
What?
Jared Brandon.
What the?
What?
I'm back, everybody.
Who is that?
Jared Brandon
Jared.
is back.
I remember there was this other Jared guy. I don't remember now.
I'm the
It's
guy
been a
that
long
says
time.
thing.
Yes.
I say the thing at the end.
You get to do all the things tonight.
You do all the things.
Welcome back, Jared. Great to have you. Hey, everybody, it's me, Todd. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We are thrilled to death that you're joining us tonight. It's going to be awesome. We have with us two other guests. This is going to be so great, and I'm going to tell you in a minute why. Guest number one, Rob Chafe.
Hello.
Say hello.
Hello.
Okay, the second time was way better. Let's keep that one. Cut it, print.
Where is he from?
Where are you from?
Here
in Ohio. He's local. He's Rob, you're just Mad Cow Amplification on Instagram. Go check him out and enjoy it. We also have the fabulous guitar player and great friend, Hex Mattos.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. How's everybody doing today?
Good. Excellent.
It's good if you don't have to breathe.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
We're excited.
So,
it's okay. It's probably worse where you are up in Cleveland, right?
Cleveland is a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not pretty here, but yeah, I heard the closer to Canada you get, the worse it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's just across the lake.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy, man. I was explaining that the last time I kind of remember this is when I was living in Southern California and Mount St. Helens erupted, and like we had ash falling on us there, all the way in Southern California. Man, that was similar.
Well, you probably remember when they have like the fires in Malibu.
Oh yeah, but that always went downwind too. But it
to Riverside where I used to live.
Yeah. Then it's always like that in Riverside. Anyways.
It hasn't hit Tennessee yet.
Yeah, I don't know that it will,
right.
because it sweeps up from right under us and it goes back up towards New York, kind of does the whirl.
Yeah.
Anyways, on the Weather Channel, you can find all this stuff out. I was going to mention the reason that we have Hex on the show, aside from...
Well, what's the show about?
Well, you know what? This is a great segue. You know why? Because Hex loves VOX amps.
Oh, well, so do I.
So do you.
Perfect.
Maybe we should do a 101 on VOX amps.
Good idea.
Do you think you could work this out?
I think I'd rather do it on VOX guitars.
All right. That's going to be a very short podcast.
All right, see you guys.
And we all leave. But anyways, Hex is a good friend, and he's an outstanding guitar player. I've shared images or videos and stuff of him doing his thing on our channel, and he's also a Grand Poobah. And so we're going to have him on a show real soon to do his own episode. But I was like, man, I can't wait. Let's get him on the show for this one.
Nice.
Hey, should I be wearing my fez right now? It's right there on top of...
That would be perfect.
I think you really should. Yeah. It is a requirement.
Yes.
Technically, you are listening to the podcast, albeit being part of the podcast.
Yes. Now, this is important. The show that we're about to do here, the VOX 101, we are going to spend some time getting a better understanding of the history of VOX. And we're going to dive into where things start to blossom into different sounds, different needs, different configurations, and also from Rob's point of view, Rob repairs amps 100% of his day almost, and I thought it'd be really great to hear from somebody who deals with used amps all the time, because we're always looking for cool used gear, and a lot of people buy things without really knowing about them. So I think hearing your perspective, Rob, is going to be great.
Sometimes they're blowed up.
Yes.
Usually when I see them blowed up.
Yes. Anyways, let's get on with this. I did want to share something that was really, really fun. So recently we had Bob Crouch and Bruce Bacon, respectively, on the show, and also respectively going back and forth about things that we were referencing. I think specifically the chestnut wood.
Chestnut wood.
Chestnut wood.
Roasting on an open
But I
fire.
have to say that like flintlock wood from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Anyways, Bruce, so they said they were going to get together. Bruce sent me a message. He says, Monday, I spent 3.5 hours with Bob Crouch at a local bar. We talked gear, bands, and life, and we'll be doing it again. Thanks for passing on his message. How cool is that?
That's really cool.
I knew it. I knew it was going to work out.
And good for the bar owner.
Exactly, yes.
Unless they got waters after the first.
Well, that's possible.
Yeah, who
We'll
knows?
have to get more details.
Yeah. Anyways, just wanted to share that because we were really excited when we get these messages, and we've got such great people out there in the audience and in our support group, and it's great. So I recommend doing that with others if at all possible.
Yes.
Okay, let's find out what's going on in our music worlds this weekend. We're going to start with the
tired,
the bespectacled Tanya Bolonsky. Go ahead.
The Ohio Guitar Show was this past Sunday, and I was there. Todd was there. A bunch of other people. It's nice to see familiar faces popping in and out. And I brought some stuff to sell, sold a couple of things, did a trade, and that's what I wanted to talk about because I picked up this really kind of a cool late 60s guitar that's branded Barclay, which was a label that was put on guitars made by Kawai and Teisco. And just a brief history of that, Kawai bought or absorbed the Teisco line in about 1967. So the guitar that I got is basically the same as a Teisco EP9T. So it's got sharp double cut sharp horns, F holes. Has a tremolo.
They're short ones though, right?
Yeah, they're short horns. Yeah. But it's kind of a cool guitar. And the guy, I had a guitar that this guy wanted, and he said, I kind of want to, I want to do a trade. And so we worked out a deal. But what's kind of cool about this, so the one that I've got is brown, kind of like, walnut colored. And I have never seen one of these before that has factory gold hardware. I mean, usually it's chrome hardware and stuff. And I did some research. I couldn't find anything that even photos of that. So I think it's kind of a rarity to have gold on it. And, maybe somebody out there knows. I don't know. But, it's not, is it a great guitar? Nah. But it's kind of cool. And it's got the, it's really lightweight because it's I think it has a center block, but it's pretty much a hollow body instrument. And the pickups sound kind of cool. 2 single
pickups?
Yeah, single coil pickups. And it's, the trem actually holds tune, which is remarkable for something like that, but it does have.
It's in really good shape too, huh?
Oh, it's super clean, yeah. So that was my guitar week.
Fantastic. Love it. Let's try Rob right here.
I was not at the guitar show.
No.
I missed you.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
No big.
My music week. I got a bunch of things. I bought an amp.
What'd you buy?
I bought a Sir PT15 IR.
You're a Sir guy.
Ooh.
I'm not necessarily a Sir guy. I love John's work, and he is.
You got a couple Sir guitars, right?
No, Anderson. Which
right.
they're buddies and everything, but
Yeah.
But yeah, we were actually, when the music store I used to manage, early 2000s, we were like Sir dealer number 11 or something.
Yeah.
We were one of the very first ones when he went out on his own from Fender. But yeah, so anyways, I'm just getting beat up. I've got an 80 watt 112, 112 cab, 80 watt head, side washed, master turned down, and I'm getting beat up at all the venues we play. Sound guys just, you got to turn down, because now everybody that plays before us, after us, the weekend before us, whatever, everybody's running direct. So there's no stage volume. So
Right.
even a reasonable stage volume, they're complaining about.
Nah.
So I'm like, well, the only thing I can think to do is try to find a lower wattage amp, and it's really not going to take much of the volume away. It's just going to kind of make it a little spongier because I'm still going to have to be at a comparable level just to hear myself over the drums. But and it'll be a smaller package, and some people hear with their eyes, and
Can you tell the drummer to turn down?
Yes, and I do. Everywhere we play, I politely remind them, go, hey, because some of these places they're putting them behind plexiglass.
Oh,
and it's like,
that's very anti-rock and roll, man.
Sure is. It's just
that's like
it's ridiculous.
You're not in.
Well, the only thing better than that is the chicken wire in front of the band.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, no chicken wire. They don't hate us that much. But yeah, so I bought that thing because I need a semi 3-channel amp because doing a cover band thing, I need everything from country to Tool to pop dance
now,
stuff.
how come you're not using like a Helix or like a Kemper or something like that?
Because they sound like butt.
Okay.
Rob is a purist.
Hey, I'm just checking.
I am, and it's funny, and I have discussion at least once a week with a customer that comes in and, I just use my tube amp at home, but I use my Helix out and this and this. And, well, have you tried version 9.7.6? Blah, blah. It's always, I get that all the time. It's like, but have you tried the newest one?
So it's like,
Well, but these people, I say these people, a lot of guitar players are like, oh, no, the newest version is just like it. And then I see them 6 months later, like, oh, yeah, that one had lots of weird things in it. Yeah. But now the new version of the Quad Cortex is the one you want. And it's like, oh, dude, no. They're all emulating what we already have.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I never went, because I remember the late 80s and the 90s when I used to haul rack mounts and stuff like that. And how long it actually took. You have everything set up, and then you show up at practice and can't hear yourself.
And it's at practice.
And I'm like, and it's just like, you know what? I went back to pedals just because of that, and I haven't gone back. And I know Todd's always told me about the little device that you use. I even forgot what it is. Just how much attention I paid.
Wow.
The stomp?
No. Yeah. And he's just like, oh, you should try this out. And all I'm thinking is just flashback to like sitting there and like getting your clean sound and then making sure that you're even is like. And, when I was single, I had all the time in the world. But, like now it's just like, hey, when are you going to be done?
Yeah.
And you're never done.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think using that for, like, I use it for modulation. So I have a single unit that can do all the modulation that I need.
And I'm not saying like all the Helix and Quad, they're junk. Every piece of gear has its purpose.
Yeah.
If I was playing at a church, let's say, where they wouldn't allow us anything on stage,
a bigger show.
Actually, a bigger show that is I would bring out more gear because if I'm at that size of a show, then I can pay for a real backline. And I would have an ABC rig with a Vox, a Fender, and a Marshall, and that's what kills me is the really big bands that can support bringing a live rig and they don't. It's like, okay, then you just don't hear and feel the difference, and that's cool if you're that guy.
Yeah.
But there's no excuse like we need to slim down or whatever. It's like, yeah, but you got 19 trucks full of lights. So rolling one road case on there with a couple heads pre-wired is,
Yeah,
curious.
If I had somebody carrying all my stuff,
exactly.
It's like, you know what? I need my main amp, then I need a backup for that, then an AB going through this, and a backup for that one. So.
Yeah. And there are a lot towards the Paramore tour that just came through. Both Paramore, and I don't remember who the opening band was or the support act, but both of them were 100% analog gear, tube amps. Yeah, all this stuff. And they were even running on, the reason I know this is the Amp RX guys that do the brown boxes.
Yeah.
They use their stuff on all their rigs to keep their voltage exact. So it's, they're like purists in both those bands. So
interesting.
But anyways.
Nice.
Well, all right. Congratulations on you.
So, new amp, yep.
Jared, how about yourself?
Well, I had this 1974 poopy brown color SG Custom that I bought right before I moved to Nashville. Sent it up to the guys at LA's, and they had it for a good long while. And they finished it. Did I bring this up on another podcast? I think I did, and but I don't think it was finished at that point.
No.
But it is finished now, and my guy at Pick Guardian, I can't remember his name. I think it's Tony Bolonsky. Did a fine job. He did a great job on the pick guard. He sent me a clear, and I just did the best I could to mark the little holes, and everything was perfect. So just another testimony for my man Tony.
Thank you, Jared.
Is the SG still poopy brown, or did you refinish it?
Oh man, I had it done in cherry. It looks awesome. It's cherry. It's cherry, and it's got the white pick guard, but it's got like the it's got pickup rings. I thought about doing the full guard white, but it's just the the small guard mid-70s. But the neck is surprisingly it's not too pencil neckish, so I'm actually happy with it. But here's the thing with those guitars though that I quickly found out and figured out. Usually small guard guitars have truss rod covers. Tenon covers. The tenon cover is in between the rhythm pickup and the actual end of the neck to cover that joint up. Mm-hmm. Well, in the 70s, they had those huge harmonica bridges. So what they did was they kind of moved the pickups up right up against that the rhythm. And I had that harmonica bridge taken off. And then I had an ABR one put on. But what happened was, because of the position of the pickups, it's further away and they're positioned more closer to the neck. I don't get a raunchy, clear, trebly bridge sound like I do on the other SGs, because the pickup is further away from the actual bridge, so it's not.
That makes sense.
It's probably about an inch. Yeah,
I'd say it is. That's at least a half an inch, and that can make a world of difference.
Yeah.
It's a crazy notable difference. It really is. It's a very sonic. It's a big time notable difference. And at first, I'm like, "Gosh darn, man, I don't like this." Well, I didn't like it at first, but and then I thought, how many other guitars do I have like this?
None.
Was that your inner voice that just did that? And I thought.
So now you're on the hunt for another one?
No, I'm happy with this one, and I'm happy the way it is. If you dirty it up and just kind of mess with the tone there, it actually sounds pretty good. So I'm very happy with the guitar. How
did you end up wiring it? Because since it's a 3 pickup, you wired the neck and the middle together. But I put a cutoff switch to the middle though. So I have a push pull in one of the tone pots, and you can cut the middle off. It's no fun though. And I have the middle. I have it out of phase too. So So you can, when you use the volume pot for the middle and it's out of phase, you have very little room, but you can find some pretty cool tones. Nice.
You can sound like Tony Iommi, So it's pretty interesting. So I got more than I bargained for tonal wise with that guitar.
Awesome.
So it's pretty interesting, weird stuff. But I got a question though.
Okay.
What about you, Todd?
Well, we need to check in with Hex first.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That's all good. I appreciate you checking in on me there, buddy.
Todd, I had a question.
Yes.
What about Hex?
What about you, Hex?
Well, I haven't bought anything new in a while. The last thing I actually bought one of those Daredevil Pedals Northern Creepers.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
And I love the fuzz on that thing.
Yeah, it's really
good. It's like perfect. It cuts through the mix. And besides that, I'm just playing shows. I'm playing tomorrow night in Mansfield with the new band I just joined with my wife, 45 Spider. And it's going to be a good little gig.
Cool.
We're in Mansfield.
We got to set up a show, man.
It's called the Brick House.
Okay, not familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it either. It's going to be like first time we're there, but they have 3 bands, and we're like right in the middle, the perfect slot.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
Neato. Mansfield's famous for what, you guys?
Heroin?
A reformatory.
Oh.
Yeah,
Heroin.
They actually are. I think they're
The
right.
jail.
Yeah.
And then it goes hand to hand. See?
Yeah, the Shawshank jail. Redemption.
Yes.
Prison. Anyways, for me,
How about you, Todd?
well, thank you, Tony and Jared.
Yeah.
So we're in the middle of writing a bunch of new stuff for my band, the Valentinos, and there's one track that I was just kind of. We put everything on Trello now. I don't know if anybody out there uses Trello, but I highly recommend it for putting songs together because it kind of acts almost like as a index card stacks. So you can say, here's the song. You can add your clips to it. You can put in notes. You can shuffle it around based on when you want to work on things. We've tagged it with like, this needs lyrics, a label that says, if it's red, it's these lyrics. If it's green, it needs a solo, da-da-da-da-da. So it's really helpful for us to use that. And that's actually what I use for the guitar knobs here.
Oh.
Everything's organized in Trello.
Did you find a bass player yet?
Still working on it. And the funny thing is, the bass player that because he moved away, he's like, man, I still want to do this. Please, please, please. And we love him. We don't want him to go, but we're like, this is very impossible to do this.
Where'd he move?
North Carolina.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a long
I thought you might
I
say
may as
like
well join
Cincy
your
or
band.
Cleveland, but
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we have a couple shows coming up still for this year, and I think he's gonna do them unless somehow magically we sort this out. But we're in a position that I do not like being in, but that's where we're at. Anyways, writing all this stuff, and one of the tracks that we were uploading, because I've got just loads and loads of like, hey, here's a riff, here's an idea for a song. I kicked it open and I was like, ooh. Oh my, I kind of like this. And then last night, it was just super late. I was kind of fidgety, and I said, I'm gonna pick it up, and I started playing that, and like almost finished the whole song. And I was like, what? That's been kicking around for like a year. So
wow.
Just because you don't finish a song right away, don't give up on it, everybody. I'm very excited about it too.
Nice.
Cool.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, on to VOX 101.
Vox amps.
VOX Amps 101. And we've got two experts here that's going to talk to us about it. Tony has... How many pages is that book? That is one of the biggest books I've ever seen of any kind, really, honestly.
Got all the schematics.
Have you
in
picked it up
Oh,
yet?
dear God.
It's about 13 inches tall. It's got to be at least 3 inches wide, and from the spine, and about... It might be longer than 13 inches tall.
682 pages.
682 pages. That's a 20-pound book any day of the week.
It's more than 20 pounds.
Is it really? Oh, my gosh. That's like a 25-pound book.
It's
Rob,
ridiculous.
pick it up.
I know. No,
You
that's
really hurt
That's
somebody
like-
with that.
Man, that's really heavy.
It's like the books I used to use in school.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so. Anyhow, the book that Todd's referring to is called VOX Amplifiers, the JMI years.
Yeah.
And this is literally the Bible of Vox early.
Yes.
The JMI era. Boy, and it doesn't get much better than that, and it doesn't get more detailed than that. I mean, anything from
That is amazing.
the knobs to everything.
Wait a minute. There's literally, they do a rundown of the different knobs.
Yeah,
Yes.
of every different knob they ever used.
Yep.
But Tony, set our audience up for what we're about to get into.
We're gonna take you on a little journey.
Yes.
And what's cool about this is it's actually a remarkably brief journey because,
Well, I hope not. We got about an hour to go. So.
well, I have to be home by 5.
Start talking slower.
I'll talk slower. Well, I mean, when you talk about the critical years for Vox amplifiers,
Yes.
it is a relatively short period of time, and there's some really interesting twists and turns and things. And in the carryover,
Can you, before you even get in there, let's do just elevator. We're at the floor. We're at the ground floor. We're going to go to floor number 3.
yes,
Tell us Vox. What do we need to know about Vox as far as like what do they sound like? So for
how about
those that
why?
maybe
Why
have not
Vox?
played them and stuff like that, yeah.
Well, if you want a British chimey sound, certainly that of the 60s, that's the sound of a Vox amplifier. You have to remember at the time these came out, there was a ban on importing things from the United States that ran until 1959. So a lot of bands and players in the UK couldn't get Fenders, they couldn't get Gibsons, they couldn't, and so until the turn of the 60s, they had this. So what was being developed over there were Marshalls, Voxes, and a couple of others, Selmers. There was just a lot of.
Selmers was German. Am I wrong?
I thought Selmers were made in the UK, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Oh, well, whatever.
Like it both you like.
Professor, figure that out.
It's still Europe.
Yeah, still Euro based companies. And what's kind of cool, and we'll get into a little more detail on this, but Vox amps in particular were actually developed for guitars, whereas Fenders and Gibsons and most other manufacturers took either hi-fi or movie projector or various other schematics that were out there. These were actually developed to make the best guitar sounds, or at least as the designer designed them, to get the best guitar sounds out of them.
Todd was right. No, they were made in UK.
What?
Actually,
But it's weird. It's an amp line of a French company. So I guess somewhere at that time was French owned, but they were made in the UK. So.
Well, there you go.
actually, I have a little question. This actually might open like a can of worms down in the. So I actually heard on. Can I mention another show without getting in trouble?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
That pedal show. They were actually talking about the origins of Vox, and one of the guys, I think it was Dan, he said that he actually played one, and the original ones were made with EL84s.
Yep.
And they couldn't actually fit them in the casing, and that's why they switched to EL34s. Something like that. I just, I heard the story, and I'm like,
No.
never heard about that.
No.
Dan's wrong, but wrong. No, we'll talk a little bit about that because there was a series of amps that came out with EL34s, which would be similar to Marshalls.
They finally came to their senses.
I got it backwards.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yes.
I got it backwards.
So when we go through this, there's really two names for the classic Vox years that you need to know.
Yes.
That's Tom Jennings
Okay.
and Dick Denny.
All right.
Now, Tom Jennings was really the guy that started the company, and Dick Denny was the guy who really came up with the, designing the amps. These two guys knew each other in World War II. They played in bands during off times in World War II, and then they went their separate ways after the war. And Tom Jennings, in the early 50s, started, of all things, an organ company.
But a lot of these companies started as organ companies.
Yeah.
Baldwin started as an organ company, and who else?
Yeah, I mean, there's
A lot of them.
so there's
Name many.
Yeah,
so there
was
were
many.
there were a lot of
One.
organs, and they that branched out into accordions and different things like that. And in 1957, Jennings changed it from the Jennings Organ Company to the Jennings Musical Instruments, so it widened the spectrum, because at that time, skiffle music was coming about in the UK.
Skiffle music.
Skiffle.
Okay.
Skiffle.
He's just
So
making
Jimmy
words
Page-
up. Just let him do
Jimmy
it.
Page played skiffle.
Yeah, it was like street musicians,
Okay.
folk music kind of thing.
The Beatles did when they were
the
kids.
one string bass,
Buskers.
boom, 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 boom. You know that one?
Busking.
They're skiffling
Yeah,
around.
kind of like busking.
All right, whatever. Go ahead.
Well, also around the same time, Dick Denny had approached Tom Jennings with his amp design, and it was really the basic, what would become the AC-15. which was the first amp that VOX put out.
What does AC stand for?
AC stands for amplifier combined with speaker, 15 watts.
Wow.
I'll be darned.
Engineers.
So some other people would say amp combo,
Yeah,
15
or
watts, but
combo amp.
Officially,
A CA 15. That's
Amp.
what it should have been called. These guys got everything wrong. Jeez.
well, they're
Okay, go ahead.
they're British,
Yes.
So, in '57, that's really when the first AC-15 was dropped in the UK.
Okay.
And what the AC-15 was just basically a 2-channel, 15 watt, which really sounds more like 20 to 25 watts.
Yes.
Because they were loud then and they're loud now. They're always, Rob can probably address this. It's maybe the plate voltage or whatever they're running them at. They're running them at the top end of the tube spectrum.
Yep.
For the
I got a
output.
question for Rob on that really quick. Rob, please answer this
Todd.
question. So he just said, and these are really loud. Now, if we're saying, if you think about like 15 watt amps across the board, like this is a 15, that's a 15, that's a 15, are they all radically different from what their loudness is? And I realize watts don't equal loud. I know that, but
Watts don't equal loud. It depends on how efficient the speaker is, of course, which can drastically change the actual decibel level. But for most guitar players, loud is not just actually like dB meter. It's actually how it responds. And I think a lot of reason that a lot of people think Vox amps are loud, which I agree with that. They're kind of unruly almost. There's no negative feedback in the circuit, and it's Class A, and it just responds quite drastically different than any typical Marshall brown or blackface or silver Fender. So that gives it that extra kind of like, you hit a note, it's like, whoa, that thing's loud.
gotcha.
Right.
That's what I was going to say. You
Yeah.
answered correctly. Go ahead.
well, I'm glad I passed.
1958, what happens?
Well, in 1958,
We got 2 pages to get through, Tony.
I'm working on it.
We're still in 58.
Yes.
Hurry this
Well,
up.
you gotta know where these things come from.
Come on,
you
Tony.
know?
I got plans on Saturday. Come on.
Alrighty. So, in addition to the AC-15 in 1958, Vox introduced an AC-4, which was a 4-watt amp, kind of a practice amp,
Okay.
and an AC-10, which was a 10-watt amp for a student amplifier that had 2 10-inch speakers in it.
Right.
The following year, and this is what pretty much everyone, when you think Vox, you usually think AC-30. Well, that's the year in 1959 that the first AC-30s came off the production.
Hello? What was that?
What was that?
Hang on. I'll get to the bottom of this. Somebody's being... Oh, I know what Hex is doing. All right, anyways, continue.
Well, it's not me.
Oh, wasn't you?
No.
Oh.
Jared?
No.
It's like,
That was the
like
guiltiest no I've ever heard.
Yeah, let's
Jared
put it like
Zach.
this. I haven't even touched my computer except for I don't want the screensaver to come on. So
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyhow, the first AC-30s are available in 1959, and this is in 1961. It was the top boost option, which basically brought extra brightness, a little more beef to the front end of the amplifier, and that's really, I think, what a lot of people, you think of an AC-30 TB, that has the extra chime and the
Was the first AC-30 only a 2-channel?
yes.
Okay, and then when they redesigned it, it became the 3-channel with 6 inputs, right?
That's later.
Oh, that's not even then. Okay.
No, that's not then.
It's on the sheet, Rob.
I don't know.
If
I
you,
don't,
if you
I
would
don't read this
if
stuff.
you would review your sheets before the show, no, yeah, that comes later. In 1962, God love them, the Beatles get their first AC-30s, and that was really, I think the Beatles more than any other group really drove the sales for Vox, especially through the 1960s. it would be tough to. It would be tough to think of another band. Although there are a ton of basically any UK band probably played a Vox at one time or another.
Yeah. What about the Stones?
Yeah, Stones had they had some Vox amps in there too. And in keeping up with the Beatles, in '63, Dick Denny designed the AC-50 and the AC-100 specifically for the Beatles. So a 50-watt amp for the guitars and a 100-watt amp for the bass. And those were the first EL-34, so similar to what Marshall uses. That became in order to get the higher output, that was what they used, and those became very popular amps, although still not as popular as to this day. I think the AC-15 and AC-30 are still probably the most sought after, but because of their relationship with the Beatles, the AC-50 and 100s are probably, some people want to have those too.
Can you imagine how definitely loud that would be before you got it to that point of like slight breakup like you can a 15 or 30?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, yeah, it'd have to be in your basement and you 3 doors down.
Yeah. And I can already hear my singer going like, "That's too loud, man."
Turn it.
Wow.
Can you turn that down?
Just carry it in. He's like, "You're too loud."
So in 1964, this is kind of the beginning of the end of what I would call the classic years of Vox.
Wait, it's already over?
Well, it continues for a while.
Jiminy Christmas.
So in '64, they struck a license deal with the Thomas Organ Company in the United States, in California. Now, Tom Jennings mistakenly thought
that's Organ Company number 2.
Yes.
3 technically.
And they're not even in Oregon, in the state. Yeah. So Tom Jennings mistakenly thought that signing this agreement would allow distribution in the United States for UK-made amps.
Ruh-roh.
He was wrong.
He didn't read it before.
I don't think he read it.
Had he been drinking that day?
Well, it's quite possible. So, sadly, the Thomas Organ era amps that were made in the United States were mostly solids, I think entirely solid state, and not very good. And a lot of people that bought them because of their association with the Beatles said, why don't these sound like the Beatle amps?
So let me hold on here. So did Thomas Organ, did they even import any and they offered the solid state, or is it just, sorry, we're just going to do our own thing, thank you for using your name?
I think they basically got the right to use the name
in the U.S.
in the United States,
and they could put on what they wanted, and
they basically designed all their own solid state amps that were
yeah. Okay.
So that brings up a good question that we'll get to when we're talking about, hey, so I want to purchase a vintage Vox.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
Okay. Yes, we will get back to that. In '66, Dick Denny started developing some solid-state UK amps, the Conqueror and the Defiant, which were actually pretty good solid-state amps. Rumor has it that the Beatles used them on some recordings, so I don't know. That one is might be in the rumor mill. '67, Jennings and Denny leave Vox. They've had enough. And they start a short-lived company called Jennings Electronic Industries, JEI. And they released a couple of, they did an AC-40, and they had a couple of amps, but it just really didn't work. I mean, it was just a company. I think at that point in time, the Vox name became the amp to have if you're going for that sound, and it just kind of fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, you can compare it to GNL guitars.
Yeah, you could probably. I mean, that would be similar.
Is that coming up?
What's that?
Well, just that they reform or something like that?
Well, they did, but that was really the end of their relationship. I mean, Tom Jennings came back to help when CBS Arbiter purchased the company.
Well, everybody was buying everything. So.
Yeah, well, anything CBS had money to burn, apparently. 1970, JMI name.
Well, actually, 68. You skipped 68.
68. That was the JEI. That's
Yes. By skip, I mean you didn't stay there. Because you know what else happened in 1968? The Super Beetle. Not the car, but the really cool-looking Vox amp with the trapezoid heads.
Oh, those came out before then.
Well, maybe, but the one I'm looking at says 1968.
The one you like.
Yeah. Anyways, but that was one of the first like all-inclusive amps. Is that fair to say? Tremolo, reverb, distortion, and it had an E-tuner on it.
Well, that wouldn't have been a UK made amp, I don't think.
Well, I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying it was in 1968.
Well, it's not
because that's what it says here in front of me.
Can we stick to my script?
Sure.
I mean, you think you're so bright jumping on that internets and finding all these little tidbits.
But that's one of the cooler ones. Whenever you see that, you're like, oh, that looks cool.
Well, the AC50 and the AC100s were also on the chrome stands too.
Yeah, but not trapezoid though.
Okay, they weren't trapezoid.
Okay.
Oh, why do I do this?
Todd Wayans. Okay, go ahead, Tony.
In 1970, the JMI name gets changed to VOX Sounds Limited. Mm-hmm. And in 72, CBS Arbiter buys VOX. In 79, Rose Morris.
And the CBS Arbiter, Dallas Arbiter, which was a UK brand.
Yes.
But are they still UK at that point?
Well, since they're owned by CBS, probably not.
Okay.
Although they continue to manufacture amps in the UK all this time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what a mess.
There were a lot of them that were made in Italy.
Naturally.
Well, there's a natural extension because we're not going to talk about it today. A lot of the Vox guitars, the production was shifted over to Italy.
Right.
So by extension, there's a lot of amps that Italian-made Voxes.
This is when everybody was drinking heavily at work every day.
What kind of year or time frame did they start doing split production in different locations?
Probably in the late 60s.
See, and that's, yeah, okay. So whenever anybody asks me about vintage Vox, I'm like, well...
What do you mean vintage
exactly,
Vox?
because I'm always like, I'm so confused because like, well, this year they made it here, but then this year they made this over here and they changed the circuit like this and this had a...
Oh, yeah.
The back was slightly different. It was like, and they, and when Jimmy made them, they had this, but when Tom made them, they did, it was like...
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there are a lot of...
This is why you have to have a 25-pound book about it, I
basically.
suppose.
I mean, but there's a lot of pitfalls in getting involved with so-called vintage Voxes.
Yeah.
Unless that's...
We'll get into
Which
that.
one? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I
Maybe.
was just curious. I didn't know they were making amps in Italy. So.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
So in 1979, Rose Morris, their retail store in the UK, they buy Vox.
From CBS.
From CBS Arbiter. And... They ran that well through the 80s, even into the 90s, and they actually had some pretty decent, what we would call reissues or whatever.
All right.
They tried to get back to the program. In 1992, Korg, of all places, buys Vox.
Yes, naturally.
And one of the things that came out in the mid 90s, around 96, the AC15, which hadn't been available as a model for about 26 years, they reintroduced that model this time as the AC15 TBRX, which stands for AC15 Top Boost Reverb. X means a Blue Alnico speaker. And then
is it fair to say that in the years like after the late 60s, we really didn't see a lot of Voxes like on stages and stuff, minus like Queen and stuff?
Well, I think there was
I'm asking open.
Well, yeah, I think there was a change in musical style.
Marshalls were ruling
but there was a lot of different stuff on stage. You see all kinds of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had High Watts,
Sound City.
I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
just everything.
But I'm talking about Voxes.
Yeah.
Because they had a specific sound.
Well, I would say maybe it didn't seem as predominant as it did in the early years because there were so limited options. So like Tony said in the early 60s, if you were in UK, it's like, well, you're either using VOX or was Highway even around then? I mean,
no, Highway wasn't around
yeah,
then.
so whereas later it's like I don't necessarily think it would have been like, wow, they've disappeared. It's just they were one of.
But if you're thinking about if we're going back to those years and we're talking about big stage sound, I mean, Marshalls and Hiwatts were kind of. That was it. That was right because they were the ones who were putting out these huge wattage amps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Sound City.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there.
Yeah, hey, there's Sound City right there. It's for sale if you want it. Okay.
Hey, I know that.
And then just to bring us into the 2000s.
Thank goodness.
The Korg VOX shifted their production over to China with the CC series.
Yes.
And those are actually affordable.
Very.
They're decent sounding versions of VOXes. You know, it's a circuit board amp, but you know.
When you say decent sounding, I mean if that's all that is available, except for the very exclusive hand wired.
Yeah.
For the last 30 years.
Yeah.
It's a VOX.
They're solid amps.
Yeah,
yeah.
And they're good, and they're built. I think pretty with good
for the price
componentry.
point.
Yeah,
I mean,
especially
it's all about price really what it comes down to. Now something that you kind of I don't want to say skipped over anything, but when Korg took them over, that was when they kind of redesigned things too, not just the AC-15, but the 30 also.
Yeah,
they made some changes, drastic changes to the 30.
Oh yeah.
Right around the same time. So I mean, from there forward, from mid '90s on, they really haven't changed anything. They've just reused old.
I think so. Yeah, and they've done well. We'll get into the specifics of each of the eras.
Go, Tony.
We'll call them the eras.
Go, Tony.
So I think most people, when you think VOX amps, you think AC-15, you think AC-30, and I think that's what the majority of what we want to focus on.
Yeah.
So again, the AC-15 amplifier combined with speaker 15 watts. And again, as I said earlier, this amp was designed specifically voiced for guitars. And rather than, using some off-the-shelf schematic and saying, this used to be a film projector and now it's an amplifier.
I got one of those too right over there.
Yes, you do.
Is that also for sale?
No, that was not.
So some of the details of the AC-15 that I think are important. The original series had an EF86 tube for its preamp tube. Now, from what I'm told, that is a kind of a problematic tube.
It must be. They switched.
Todd, what do you think?
I hate EF86s.
Yeah.
What else would an EF86 be found in?
A very low gain mic pre.
Okay.
They are very high gain, high noise tube.
Okay.
And I think it's a pentode.
It is a pentode.
Yeah. What makes them so
That's what I was going to say.
Prone to noise when you're using them in the first stage with a relatively hot signal that comes out of a guitar. Compared to
they don't take kindly to getting bounced around inside of a combo.
No, they don't. They're
okay.
Yeah.
And the AC-15 had a pair of EL-84s. Okay, that makes sense, right? A tube rectifier, the EZ-81, and this is I'd asked earlier about this Mullard phase inverter, also known as a long-tailed pair. Rob, can you?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, come on.
No, so I didn't know that Mullard was the company that first published the circuit. I believe that, but I didn't know that. Long-tailed pair is a description of how the circuit kind of works. Up until this point, how I'm going to let them sound as much as possible. Higher wattage amps, you have at least two output tubes that typically run push-pull. And one signal to one is in phase, the other one's out of phase by 180 degrees. The only way to do that was to use a tube, a single 1/2 of a preamp tube, and the signal comes out of a tube once it's amplified is flipped. So they would send the signal before the tube to one tube, the signal after that preamp tube to the other tube. Not very efficient. There's no gain. There's only noise introduced. You can actually lose signal. Very hard to match it because you're trying to amplify a signal and get exactly the right amplification factor back out of it to match the prior signal, the signal before it. The long-tailed pair, it amplifies both halves of the wave, and it actually uses a shared cathode to help match the signals. And you can adjust the plate resistor by tiny amounts too to get them to match better. So you get amplification to drive the output tubes with a cleaner signal, and it's a better way to match.
It's a little more efficient in terms of circuitry.
It's more efficient, yeah. It's just all around better. More horsepower, a cleaner circuit. It's a different sound, of course, but yeah.
So a couple of other features on the AC-15 that some of these we'll talk about a little bit more in detail. The cut control, which nobody understands how to use.
That was pretty neat.
That is actually true. I actually set mine up and just leave it there.
Leave it till it sounds where it's supposed to. The cut control essentially is a low-pass filter. And it's
pretty neat how it works, actually.
Oh, really?
It takes those two signals that are out of phase from one another, one going to one tube, one going to the other tube, and there's a potentiometer, which is a resistor, and a cap.
I'll send you the...
Hey, Jared, mute.
Yeah.
And so the resistor and capacitor between those two signals go into each one of the tubes. So again, in phase, out of phase signals.
Okay.
And as you decrease the resistance, certain frequencies are then passed through that LC network. So then certain frequencies cancel each other out.
I'm gonna put the theme
end
of the X-Files over that. Actually.
Yeah, basically, as you turn it down, then the high signal bleeds between the two, canceling each other out, leaving only the lower frequencies intact.
Nice.
It's
So that's why they call it a tone cut, pretty much.
Yeah, cut. Yeah, and it's just a simple RC network, and it's
basically take some of the high end bite out of the louder that you get.
As you turn down the resistance, then the frequency drops. So you're allowing more frequencies from the high end down to be cut off. It's a neat circuit, but yeah, nobody had done it to that point. So
right,
very cool. Nice on you, Vox. Go ahead, Tony.
And other features, the VibraVox trem vibrato.
That is a really nice trem.
That's really cool. Well, then the vibrato. It's actually vibrato that shifts out of phase. That's yeah.
And then eventually, the originals did not have Celestion Alnico Blues, but that became kind of the standard amplifier speaker for Voxes. And what that is just it's a relatively low wattage speaker. I think it's rated at 15 watts.
15 watts, yeah.
Little teeny tiny voice coil, but the magnet is made of Alnico, and usually has like what we call a bell housing on the back.
Yeah,
that's how you can kind of of course they're blue. Although later they painted them silver for some reason.
Quite expensive these days.
They're expensive, but boy, I love them.
Yeah,
me likey.
Yeah, that's what I'm running on my AC30 right now. Yeah, they're the blue Alnicos.
Yeah, a pair.
Have you ever mixed it? Done a silver and a blue?
I almost did, because I have one of my good friends. He has an AC30 with the greenbacks on it, and we were actually gonna do a swap, and it just never happened.
Yeah,
the putting a silver with the blue or a gold with the blue is really cool. Kind of makes it a little broader, in my opinion. What one doesn't have, the other one has.
Or wider range.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I really like. I've got an Alnico Gold in a 212 cabinet along with a greenback, and I mean it's one of the best sounding speakers I think I've ever used. So all that is, the Gold is just basically a higher voltage or higher wattage rated Alnico Blue.
Okay.
I think it's rated at 50 watts maybe.
Sounds right. Yeah. I don't know either off the top of my head.
50, 55, whatever.
I like this. Whatever. AC30.
Job done.
AC30, go.
Okay, so how do you make an AC15 into an AC30?
You double everything.
Yeah, you multiply by 2.
Yeah, you put a quad of EL84s in it. And well, you have to beef up the transformers too.
Yeah, I suppose so.
That's important. But what they found is originally they were running the EF86 preamp tube, and it was getting very noisy and making things not so nice. So they eventually on the AC30s changed it to the UK is ECC 83. We call it a 12AX7. It's a little more versatile, a lot more
versatile. That thing's in everything.
Yeah, I mean it's in everything. It's is the standard preamp tube.
Why do they keep the 86 in the AC15 then? That seems odd that they would switch, the preamp circuit for the normal channel. And
I'm not 100%
historic.
sure.
Is there any historic value in that?
I don't think they were concerned with history.
Yeah, I mean,
I think they were. That
they were only 4 years old or whatever.
That was the sound, and I think they said, well, because it's not rattling as much as an AC30, I guess we'll just do it this way. So that's. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Also on the AC30s, eventually the top boost circuit, which again we talked a little bit earlier, was a way to increase the brightness and chiminess of that channel. A little more beefy, I guess, too.
Woof.
Woof. And so that's the AC15 and the AC30.
Right.
And we love them. We know them.
They're the two most popular ones, right?
Well, I think they really are. I mean, if in terms of, if you're not looking for a practice amp or whatever. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the eras.
Okay.
Post JMI. And some of the amps that came out during those time frames. Some good, some not so good. So the Thomas Organ VOX amps, which were mostly solid-state amps made in the United States. But surprisingly, they came up with a clever ploy to come up with names that sounded somewhat British. Like, for instance, the Westminster, the Royal Guardsman, and the Cambridge. And as we said a little earlier, I think a lot of people that bought these USA models were disappointed because they didn't sound like the amps that the Beatles were playing because they were totally different amps.
What?
Totally. A tube amp versus a solid state, especially in that point of time.
Yeah.
There was no bueno. After Thomas Organ, VOX Sounds Limited, Arbiter, Rose Morris VOX amps. In 1970, that was the first AC30 with a circuit board, it was a PCB, and they also added reverb at that time. In the 90s, Rose Morris upgraded to their AC30s to closer to original specs, still though with a PCB. And there was a limited edition AC30, we'll call it a reissue, combo, and also a piggyback version. And those, for the era, were probably the closest to the early 60s or early to mid-60s AC30s.
Is that the TB6 model?
Yeah, well, no, that would have been the in the 90s, the Rose Morris, when they upgraded the AC30 specs.
So that wasn't the TB6.
Well,
TB6, I thought
there was a TB4, which is a 4 input,
right,
and a TB6, which had 6 inputs, which we'll talk. We can talk.
6 inputs.
6 inputs, because there were basically
3 distinct channels.
3 input channels. Yeah. So
yeah, because wasn't there an input just for like if you wanted to use the tremolo and the reverb, you had to put it on that input.
Yep.
Yeah, you have a separate channel. Yeah, I just didn't remember if it was Rose Morris or if it was Korg that actually.
No, it was pre-Korg.
So that was right, because it was early 90s when that dropped. And
Yep. Definitely. And then the Korg era, which, thankfully, especially in more recent years, they have come around to, I think, trying to kind of renew the brand and take things back to kind of where they were. There was their first versions were the AC15 TB-RX, which is again top boost with reverb and Elnico speakers, and then the AC30 TBX. and I think at that point they had shifted back to just 4 inputs. I think the last of the 6
Sounds
input
right.
amps would have been early 90s.
Right, which those would have been the AC30 TB6.
Yep. Yeah. And then again, we talked a little bit about the CC series, the Custom Classic. They did an AC15 and an AC30. And the neatest thing, and this is special to me because I have one of these, is the hand-wired series. So that would be the AC15 HW. And
Those are probably the most coveted ones in modern day.
Of modern VOX amps, because they're still using turret boards for the hand-wired series, as opposed to circuit boards for most of the other amps. That are in that line.
But the circuit on the AC15 HW, it's now you have an HW, right?
Right.
That means hands wire.
That doesn't have reverb or trim.
No reverb or trim.
No reverb or trim, but no EF86, right? It's a 12
I think it's an AX7.
I'm almost positive it's an AX7.
You retubed mine, so.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how many
don't you
amps ago
remember?
that was. Yeah,
don't you remember my amp?
Yeah. It's every customer every day. But what I was going to say was there was one, and I don't know if you're aware of it or not. It's mid 90s. I think Korg did this one. It was called a AC15 H1, I think. H1 and maybe something after it, TX or something.
Uh-huh.
That was a reissue of the 15, the early 15s that had the vibe trim, all that on it. It was only came out for a year. So talking about the most coveted as far as later years, that would probably be the one.
That's the one
because it was like as close as you can get to the.
Oh, and I remember
deal.
some of the NAMM shows. They had finished wood cabinets. That there was a
nice.
series. Yeah, I remember those. And
I've never seen one of those. Huh?
Oh, they're pretty. They're
How
pretty.
about that?
So that's each of the eras. Some of the ones, the least desirable are probably going to be the Thomas Organ era stuff. It's just not that good.
stuff with weird names. You mean?
The stuff with
Like
British name.
And then there's the Viscount,
Yeah.
which was also that was a crossbreed with Fender, actually.
Was it?
Yes,
Okay.
What do you speak of?
I read it on the internet.
No, of course, it has to be true.
It's a cool name though, the Viscount.
Sounds like it's right here on this
The
forum.
Viscount. Wow.
I'd like to come back around to the question I was asked earlier today
What's that?
during this podcast. Do I own a Vox?
Not at
don't.
lunch.
However, I did own a Vox. I remember this now. It was the smaller Vox. I don't even think I had a tube in it, but it had all the effects on it.
Oh,
Like it would-
no.
like one of the
That
doesn't count.
The AD
Yeah, it was a
series,
Valvetronic.
Valvetronics.
Yep.
Valvetronic.
And I gave it to my niece when she was in high school for jazz band, so she would have something to practice with.
No, that's nice. That's a
It's
good
a nice little
use.
amp, though. I mean, was it a take to gig at the bar amp? No, it wasn't. But it was a good little amp, man. So yeah, I like Vox.
Good. Jared votes yes for Vox.
I do. Put me down. Put me down in the
Put him
yes
down for
column.
yes. Well, let's talk about some peculiarities of Voxes, shall we?
Okay.
Yeah. And the top one that probably, now this is referring mostly to the AC15s and AC30s, is the top-mounted controls to the rear of the amp.
Yes, I've been confused a couple of times just because, especially if you go from an AC15 to an AC30 and everything's backwards.
Yep.
Well, I had a sound guy telling me, how come you're getting louder? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm turning it down. No, I was turning it up.
Yeah, and some of them, as you said, Hex, the actual plate is facing, as if you were behind the amp. And
Yes.
truth be told, in the day, a lot of players would have their amps sitting in front of them. But more importantly, the reason that Voxes are set up that way is the layout of the of the amp itself and the position of the transformers. The transformers are mounted basically close to where the speakers are, and the preamp stage is behind is to the rear of the amp. So you've got some shielding there, And basically the only way to make that work is to have the controls on the top at the back of the amp.
Yeah, I mean, well, they made the choice to mount that chassis, how we're thinking of it, 90 degrees different than Marshall did.
Right.
I mean, and it's in a combo. I mean, I guess Marshall just left it with transformers hanging down.
Right.
Where this is
it.
transformers pushing forward. Different choice. I wonder why they chose that, if it was easier in production.
Well,
or?
I think in production, from what I've read, is that they were actually able to wire the whole amp up and have tubes and everything in it. And because of the position of the transformers and the preamp stage, if it rolled while it was on the line or on the work desk or bench rather, the tubes would be protected by the transformers.
That's brilliant because
he's kind of right. They kind of are.
That'd be great, especially if it sucks to play those live. Honestly, that's why I got rid of mine. I just got fed up because everything was backwards and upside down. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Why didn't you just put a little piece of tape on it, so you could read it?
Because I shouldn't have to.
Oh,
man.
Whatever.
Make it right.
Today's musicians, it's
You're
an
such an
inconvenience.
amp
It's
snob. You need a stomper for your VOX.
And
Go back to your Helix.
Well, here's another thing. Here's something else, a quirk about at least the AC-15 that I had, which was a CC.
Yeah.
The actual potentiometers, like if I sneezed, they'd spin.
Well, that was probably just your unit. Somebody had probably cleaned it out with something they shouldn't have. Yeah, because from the factory, they don't come like that.
Yeah, there should be friction.
Yeah,
Man,
there'll be a certain amount of friction.
9 friction.
Yeah. So somebody used WD-40 at some point.
That's stupid.
Yeah, well, yeah. Agreed.
All right,
But
fine,
You can't
Vox,
hold
you can
Vox.
have that one back.
Yeah, that's not on there.
I like the smell of WD-40. Is that a sin?
It is not a
It's
sin.
a little awkward, but
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
you might have a problem.
I
depending on
bet
how much
you. I
snuff
bet
it.
you like the smell of zinc too, like diaper rash stuff.
No.
Yeah,
no.
I bet you do. Okay, go ahead, Tony.
Maybe.
All right.
What were we talking about again?
Quirks
Vox
and
guitars.
oddities.
Oh,
Quirks,
yeah.
and, quirks and oddities
Vox
of
guitar.
things. Hex, you have been playing with one for a long time. Several. What are some of the things that you are not a fan of on the Vox?
Weight. Just
Okay.
the general weight of them.
That's right.
I love the sound. If I actually had to pick between a twin reverb and the AC-30, I
Both
will go
heavy.
with they're both heavy. But if I
Yeah.
had to pick one, because it doesn't take much to get an AC-30, like to have that grit.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like the way I use it, like my clean sound has a little bit of grit, and all my overdrives are to push the amp, not to color it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually, for example, like use an OCD, and it just has that OCD sound. It doesn't affect, doesn't change the tone at all, and then switch to a tube screamer, and you get that tube screamer sound, but it still has that, you can still tell it's a box.
Yeah.
Yep.
And especially, and it's like I don't have any negatives, like all the, like stuff I couldn't do with a Fender, like stacking pedals, especially stacking overdrives. The Vox, at least in my opinion, it just controls everything. It's like you get more grind, less grind, but it's still the same tone.
Which model of the Vox did you end up landing on?
So right now, actually, I have an AC-30, and this one is the CC2 with the blue Alnicos. That's the one I play with the Daredevils. And then with 45 Spider, I ended up getting the AC-30 S1 with the single speaker, which that one actually it pretty much is based on a top boost circuit, but the only difference is that as in the regular AC-30, you have your top boost volume and your master volume. The S1 has a gain.
Oh, okay.
So,
Nice.
and the thing is that you can actually just like turn the volume down and crank the gain, or you can play with it just like you do with the AC30. The only drawback of that S1 is that the reverb is digital. It's not,
man.
it's not a tank like the other ones. And especially with 45 Spider, that's is a garage style band. I don't use that much reverb.
Yeah.
So it works out, perfect with that. But when I'm doing like the country punk stuff, I just need to have just like a little bit of, and I actually changed, I changed the reverb tanks on my boxes.
Yeah,
Because
smart move.
the tanks that come with them, that's actually a con. They're not very good.
Yeah, they're very metallic. That's I
Yeah.
have at least 1 or 2 AC15s through a week, and pretty much course of matter. We just replace the reverb tank. It's a very noticeable. I tell people, and they're like, "What, really?" And then we do it, and they hear it like,
You
"Oh,
replace
wow."
the whole tank, or you replace the springs?
The whole
No,
tank.
you replace the tank.
Yeah, the cost to replace springs. I mean,
All right,
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
I don't even know if you could get reverb springs, but yeah, you swap out the tank. It's 4 screws, and you pull it out and swap it. But
Yeah.
anybody that has one, do it. Just do it. It's
All
much
right.
less metallic-y. It's
Yeah, and I forgot the brand.
Where's a
I think
good place to get
Mod.
that, Rob?
Mod? Yeah, those are the ones I actually got. I
what was
think
it? Antique Tube Supply. I think that's who distributes them. Mod.
I think I found mine through Mojo Tone.
Mojo Tone? Yeah, they probably sell them too. Yeah, it's
Okay.
8EB3C1B, I think is the part number.
I was just going to say that.
I think
You've
it
bought
is.
one or two of those.
You-
huh?
you do this
I've
often?
used a few of those, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Well-
I have another thing that I think it would make a Vox more attractive to me. And actually, on the low, I have been looking for like just a little.
You should get an AC15.
I know. Rob, I just said I was looking.
okay.
Rob, I just
Okay.
said I was looking for one.
Mr. Quada.
But here's the thing. I can't. The color of the it's just I don't know.
Cosmetics?
Yeah, man. It's like go back to the black. Dang it.
Well,
The black is cool.
Dude, I mean, I don't know. When you lay something down on a record, nobody
Brown
knows
and
what
purple.
color your
Come
amp
on.
is, man.
Come on. Brown and purple. Okay, go ahead.
where do you see that? I actually have one of the Crimson AC15s.
I like brown and purple.
The red ones are cool.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just wait for one
I
of those.
just mean the standard unit. Like it's just,
Yeah,
it looks like a old piece of grandma's furniture. I'm just saying.
well, whatever.
Wow.
Or Tony's furniture. Anyways,
Wow.
so
Tony's furniture. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, this was the Vox amp.
Now let's make fun of Tony time.
Tony storms out.
Wow. I've had enough of you, Todd.
So let's ask a couple questions. Thank you so much for the deep dive into the history. I think that helps us better understand the absolute conflagration of insanity of where does the Vox come from and what's a good one.
Well, now,
Which is the question.
If you didn't know a lot about Voxes, now you probably know
More than you need to.
Yeah. I mean, it really
It's
is.
just confusing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's just like,
Okay, so Rob, what are common Vox questions that you get?
common Vox questions. Well, there's a few different things. In the past 10, 15, 20 years, nobody can use an AC30
Except Hex.
except Hex.
And
I mean,
it sounds so good on stage, Hex.
Yeah.
Honestly, the first time I heard you play, I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere near in front of that guy. And
Well,
and I stayed in front of him the whole time and videotaped him almost the whole time before he even became my friend. I was like, this guy's killing it.
they're awesome amps, but between the weight and the wattage, it's just like, it's the same reason the guys don't use twins anymore.
Yeah.
Like everything I get in from players or deluxes, Vibrolux on the top end.
Yeah.
Because just the size and the volume from it.
And actually, when it comes to the size, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
I actually have mine in a flight case.
Oh my God, what are you, crazy?
It takes two people to take it out of the.
And a forklift.
Yeah. Todd has seen me taking it out of the van and putting it
Yeah.
in.
And the springs recover off the van.
But the cool part about that is he takes the cover off and he uses that as an elevated
As a
guitar stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I used to
Not
sing-
you. I mean, I'm saying
No, I
he's
know,
a
I
smart
used to-
guy.
It could also make a good porta bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
and the thing too, when it comes to the volume, that's one of the reasons why I stack pedals. Because a lot of people just crank the hell out of the amp just to get their overdrive, and pretty much my overdrives, what I'm doing is pushing the amp without making it way too loud.
Now, do you since you got a CC, is yours one of them with the switch so you can engage both the normal and top boost channels together, or do you have to ABY them, or?
I actually think I have to do like a bridge cable just to get both of them.
Okay, so yours
But
is
I basically just use just the top boost.
okay, because that's talking about a lot of guys, especially a lot of country alt rock guys are using the 15s now. They're using ABY box, and they'll ABY the channels, to kind of make it a pseudo 3-channel amp.
Yeah.
Which is
that
kind
is
of cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and that's
I
what I'm
need to
seeing.
try that.
That's what I'm seeing more in the past 10 years is the AC-15.
Yeah.
Above all else, probably 10 of those to everything else Vox makes combined.
Right.
And it's usually that kind of guy that's playing anything from small, like Newport shows, like small national kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To,
Newport's
your
a local
bar.
venue here. That's one of the better sort of theater style venues.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how many thousands of seats, but like you'd see, I don't know, Drive-By Truckers or somebody at something like that.
Yeah.
See, and the thing too is that I personally like the AC-15 over the AC-30 because I can actually use less pedals with it.
Yeah, because you're able to get the amp to break up on its own a little more.
But the problem is, when like we're not rock stars or anything like that. You show up at a venue and they don't mic your amp, you're screwed.
Well, yeah.
At least on my case. So when you have a loud drummer, and actually loud drummer, that's pretty much the problem. It's like you have to crank it too much, and then you're too dirty. So I have more versatility with the 30.
Yeah.
But if I had my own choice, like if I knew we're going to have like great sound, I was going to be mic'd, the 15 all the way.
So, and Todd, do you come across that? I'm not plugged into the original
Being
world.
not mic'd?
Yeah. Do you come across that quite often as well?
Very rarely. Even in smaller places, it's almost
okay.
always mic'd.
Because I know 20 years ago I would run into that, but I haven't been in that scene.
Now, you need to play like New Philly.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is your hopes aren't high for the Mansfield gig.
I know. I will say. So
they're actually gonna have like a professional
mic
sound
for you?
system.
Cool.
Yeah, they're actually gonna have a mic for the. Actually, I'm using the S1 for that one.
Yeah. There's a place here called the Stoop that they only have a mic for the vocals.
It's a bigger size room too.
It's a bigger size room, but it's
Wow.
also like a super lo-fi,
Wow.
sort of punk joint. And you got to crank up. You got to crank up.
Okay.
Anyways, so let's talk about. So what does we'll get a little bit more into things to look out for. Okay, but what, in your opinion, does the Vox not do well sonically?
It doesn't do high headroom clean.
Yeah.
If you want to get high headroom clean stuff like the clean chicken picking kind of stuff, it won't do it. It just
unless
won't.
you get like when we were at Dr. Z's place and we played that Vox that he had.
Well, that was
Brad Paisley's.
Was that his take on a 100 circuit, Tony? Wasn't that what that was?
Yeah.
No, but he had the actual Vox amp there.
Oh, is that what we played?
Yeah, you played out of
Was it
Brad
an actual
Paisley's.
Vox? No, I think it was something he made for Vox. He only made 3 or 4 of.
Oh, 4 Vox?
No, 4 Paisley. He bought like 3 or 4.
It was an actual Vox.
because I know he's wired some stuff for Brad Paisley.
Photos of that.
Because Brad Paisley loves the Vox sound. That's where the whole Z-Rec and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
It's just kind of like a take on the Vox, but with a little bit more shine.
Yeah, and sort of. And I think what we plugged into that particular day, Todd, though, I'm almost positive that he said he made something like 3 or 4 of them. One of his buddies has 1 or 2 of them.
Yep.
Paisley has one, and then that one that was in the shop, or
And
something
it was like 100 watt.
It was 100 watt, and that's what it was. His take on was like a normal channel. It's much dumbed down though, because it was like single channel, 3 or 4 knobs, 100 watt stupidity. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And that's where the 50s and 100s came from way back when with the Beatles. They needed more headroom, and with those you can absolutely get them clean. But because by the time you can break up, your ears are bleeding. But we're talking like AC15 or AC30. Yeah, I mean, AC30, you can play a moderate sized stage, especially cover band gigs around here where we might have a couple hundred people in the crowd. You can absolutely get a pretty clean sound from it because it's at such a low volume, and you can run it with the channel volume down all the way, the master all the way up. Talking like a CC, 2 or whatever. But in generally, that's not what they're known for. They're known for that. It's breaking up is if you hit it. If you dig into your guitar hard without even pedals, it'll start to be that breakup kind of thing.
Yep, gotcha.
And it's great. That goes back to the in part, no negative feedback on the output section and Class A operation. So
and that's what I was using a while ago when I had the Cash tribute band because I just didn't have enough. But the thing is, we were actually hitting a lot of places that I had to turn up and. That was problematic because now I'm.
So that's when you had what'd you have?
Yeah, an AC15 at that point.
And it wasn't enough.
It was just going. It wasn't
Dirtier.
running clean the whole thing, so it was running dirty.
Yeah.
This is not.
So
good.
there you go, and that's where. Yeah, there you go. That's why you need Hex's rig.
And I didn't feel like it had enough. Like, if I dug into it again, if I had the volume. And I didn't even feel like I got that high. I mean, I was like getting like 2, 3, 4, and I was starting to mush out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Will.
And so like, I like getting a bite into it, and it was like, nope, it was spongy.
No, it's not going to have that. And again, a big part of that, and that's Fender with basement stuff going off in Fender land. That's when they started using the negative feedback. It cleans that up, tightens it up a lot in the output section.
Yeah.
And the Vox doesn't have that. As far as I know, no Vox has ever. Yeah.
We can consult the Vox Bible here.
Oh, geez, I don't have enough time.
Well, and the thing too is that usually the people that play Vox, they like that grit on. They like the fact that it's not super clean. Because I remember, like back in the '80s when I heard U2 and I heard Edge, and I'm like, oh my God, his amp just has grit with delay. What kind of pedal is that? And Lord and behold, it's not a pedal, it's the Vox amp.
Yep.
And the first time I played one, I'm like, that's the sound I've heard on my head all this time. But it's like you have to be a fan of that sound. Like if you want, like if you're playing like in an emo band that has like a bunch of different atmospheric sounds, you can do it on a Vox, but it's gonna be grimy. It's not gonna be completely clean.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And in some cases, you either like the sound or, you go to a different amp. I mean,
and that's where, people ask me like, what is the best amp or whatever. There's no such thing like Hex has found out that how he plays and what he's trying to get. The Vox is perfect for how he plays and what he's putting through it. But, somebody down the street can't get anywhere near that sound out of it. And they found that a dual professional is what works for them, or a Plexi. Everybody's playing is different with how they're doing. So, no right and wrong. It's just, if that's the sound you're kind of going after or not.
Could be a Peavey.
So
could be doubtful, but could be.
If you're, I got a classic 212 VTX. I'm just saying that that's
like I said,
that's
could be. Yeah.
Anyways, so I'm on the hunt for something a used Vox, and I've run into a couple deals where I think they're deals, and because they're a little bit older, or they're they're used and stuff, and what should I be on the lookout for? Considering that,
Tony?
Well, I think you're safe with any of the CC series. It's, price-wise, they're usually affordable. I think they're fairly robust amps. They capture most of the Vox tonality. If you're looking at something older, going back into the pre-90s, you're treading in dangerous water because there are so many variations and so many not so good ones out there. I personally would avoid any of the solid state, like the 60s and 70s solid state.
Anything with a really cool name.
Yeah.
Like the Viscount or the Buckingham.
I mean, I
Those
think
were all made in the U.S. too, so they were trying real hard to be British.
Yes,
which
they
is
were.
really interesting.
Well, I think it was a little bit of a con game, but honestly,
The Kensington,
yes.
the Essex, oh my, the Sovereign.
But I think that most people are going to encounter, at least in the used market these days, the CC series, maybe some of the newer ones. I've got, I have a bench amp that is a Pathfinder, which is just a little practice amp. Yeah, I mean those
are cute.
Yeah, they're fun. And then you worked on my night train.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot they made those too.
Yeah, it's kind of like a chrome head.
Is that all tube or?
Yeah, that's all tube.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. You did a couple of mods
I
on it.
forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so some of those, I think anything post 2000, you're relatively safe with.
Yeah, even in the 90s, I think, again, like you said, it's the CC.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they got a lot of, I don't want to say guff, but people were like, well, this is not a Vox. That when Korg took them over, they're like, this doesn't sound like an old Vox. No, it doesn't. But now over time, I think their changes to the circuit have now become accepted as, okay, it's not the old 60s Vox thing, but is a very useful sound, different adaptation on the Vox.
Yeah.
And to Tony's point, I think, because people go, well, should I buy a hand wired? And I generally tell people, no. Because for the money difference, I mean, it's a big difference. Because you can get, I'm finding AC-15 CC1s all around town, $400 or $500.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how much I pay for. I think I got mine at Sam Ash for $350.
That was
a friend deal.
Okay.
You're talking a great sounding amp, all tube, that's built pretty darn well for what it is. And holy, wow, that's cheap. That's a great price.
Question, since we're talking about that era, and if you go into your local store or your used store and it's like, it's a Vox, it's an AC-15, you're like, hey, that's cool, it's $400. Wait, it's the same one sitting right next to it. They look identical, and one's much more than that.
Well, now the hand-wired ones
Not the
look,
hand-wired.
Okay.
I'm talking about the C2. So the AC-15 C2, which is the two. Oh, so that's a 212.
That's 212.
Is there?
Well, because I know for the AC-30, I think the C1s were with the greenbacks and the C2 had the blue Alnicos.
Right.
Okay, there you go.
Because I have a C2.
Yep.
Yeah, because there is an AC-15 C2. But that's still a 12. Okay.
And that's a
Well,
212.
double check, because I know they did an AC-15 with 210s on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what that is.
The AC-15 C2 is a 15-watt 212. So that's kind of cool. So you have a 15, but it's got twice the air power there.
And I don't know if the very first AC-15 was 212 or not, but they did make 212 AC-15s back in the 60s.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You worked on one.
Yeah, I just had that. Yeah, it was a 63 or something. 64.
Anyways.
Yeah. So I mean,
Okay.
The point being is like, if
Chances are you're not going to find too many of those.
well, yeah, and that I think we're talking two different things. Someone's saying, what, I'd like to check out a Vox, and I've got a few $100 in my pocket, and do I get the 30 or the 15? You can get either
And
one.
you'll always get your money out of it too.
Yeah, exactly, and they can be found anywhere. You buy a 30. 800 to $1,000 maybe, a 15, 400 to 500 ish. Now, if you're like, and I've had some older guys be like, man, I tried that one. I tried the TB6 that was made, and none of them sound like my old one. You're right. It's a different circuit. You need to pony up the money and buy an early 60s.
Yep.
And it's going to be what, $4,000 to $8,000?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If you're on a good day.
Yeah.
I mean, like for one of the fawn color early 60s,
Yeah.
just
Or
add some zeros.
or you can get the American made ones.
Oh,
famously,
Jesus.
such as like the Grenadier, the Winston, the Booster, the Churchill. Come on,
Todd, why don't
the
you-
Westminster,
Do something useful on the internet.
the Sovereign, the Essex.
Do,
Come on,
Todd,
it's like,
Todd.
man, they were pandering to us. We didn't know any better.
Do me a favor. Look up AC15 H1. See if that comes up.
I did, actually.
And you couldn't find one?
I didn't get it. But anyways, one question while I'm doing this, I'd like to ask. So, okay, great. I got a killer deal. I got a really good condition. And that's the other thing, because these move around a lot. They stay in pretty good condition. I mean, they're really solid amps.
Yeah, there isn't.
So I just got one, and I got a great deal on it, $400. What do I need to do to it to like really make it? Is there anything?
Honestly,
the first thing, the tank, the reverb tank.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing I would say I mean, and I tell guys that when they bring them in, it's like, well, do you use reverb? Yeah, I love reverb. Okay, you want to replace the tank. Other than that, if it's not making any noise and it sounds like it should, you don't have to replace tubes. It's fine. I don't do anything else in those except generally replace tubes and swap out reverb tanks.
Well, you can also, if it has a greenback in it.
Of course, speaker.
If you want to put a new, like an Elnico speaker in it, that's a fantastic upgrade.
Yeah. Now, I tell you what, though, me personally, I would keep the greenback. I like, because having that lower efficiency speaker that has a very forward mid-range push, that's exactly what I want the 15 to do. And I could turn up the amp an extra couple of clicks to get the amp to break up and compress more at the same linear volume, where if I put a gold or blue in it, I can't have the amp as loud because it's such a more efficient speaker.
Yes.
So that's personal preference, absolutely. But me personally, I like, the greenback.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. I'm looking at the thing that you asked me to look for. That's H1. You just want to see how much it is?
H1 TV. I think that's the booger.
H1 TV is.
Yes, see right there.
It's got an Alnico blue. H1 TV is.
What's that one?
You mean how much?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Let's look at it.
See if that's even what I'm thinking of.
That's a little guy.
Yep.
He's just a little guy. No listings for that one. However, $1,300.
That's the one I was telling you about. That is the true recreation of the original 15. It's got an EF86 in it that they made sometime in the 90s.
Okay, but sonically,
it's that's a different that's.
So if you did a blind taste test with that one,
you would notice an EF.
What would you notice?
I think just the overall tone is different out of the EF86 versus a 12AX.
And even the other channel is going to sound different because it's a different circuit for the trem vibrato.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and the I don't know if that one has reverb or not. If it does have reverb, it'll sound different too because the reverb and all the CC stuff.
A lot of the older stuff did not have reverb in it.
I don't know if they put reverb in that one or not.
But it's hard to say.
But anyways, my point being is why I wanted to bring up that one, though, the H1 series stuff, is that is a more modern one that is a throwback. So if you're looking for that, if you're like, I don't have $6,000 to spend on a 1963 AC15, if you can find one of those H1s, it's like, oh, okay, it's still $1,500 bucks.
$1,500.
But
that's a lot of money for a.
But it's pretty much the same circuit as that $4,000 or $6,000 amp. So
true. Yeah, that's true.
And it is noticeably different. It is,
and everything's relative. So if that's the sound you really want and it's important, then that's not going to be a big deal to you.
Yeah, that's affordable compared to the other one.
Yeah. All right, Hex, you got to get one of those now.
I know.
He's on reverb right now. Like, what is this H1?
Yeah, that's not the problem. It's how am I gonna, pass it by my wife without her noticing there's another amp down here.
You're gonna start a third band.
Yeah. You just offload the ones you don't want to me. That's how this works.
Actually, that's how I ended up with the S1. Just like, hey, you know what? I need something to play with your band. Okay, that works.
Nice.
See, the funny thing is that my wife's a drummer. So, she's always down here. She's a musician. She actually knows what comes in and out of this studio.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I tried many things, like taking an empty guitar case and coming back. I'm down here looking at it. She's like, "Where did that come from?"
Well, what's in the bag? My sleeping bag. You don't own a sleeping bag.
Yeah, she knows everything. Yeah. Everything that goes down here.
Funny. Well, that's good. She's
that's why
awesome. I'm a
that's why I
huge
don't
fan
have
of your
that.
wife. That's in the most appropriate way.
No, I was just gonna say that's why I don't have that many this week in music for me. They're
Well,
like
you already
great
have a
fun.
crap
Yeah,
ton of gear, man. Let's just be.
I need to start downsizing.
Yeah.
It's-
Okay. Any final questions or thoughts on VOX as we know it right now, guys?
Actually, the one thing that, for example, I found really useful when I switch from Fender to VOX, you can do swaps of the tubes without having to bias it. So it's something that, for example, for me, I change tubes like at least like once a year, depending on which amp I use the most. And it's something I can do. And well, if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, take it to a professional.
Yeah.
But just the fact that you don't have to bias the amp when you're switching tubes, that's a big convenience for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Okay, Rob, you see more amps than most people east of the Rockies.
More than the average bear.
More than the average bear east of the Rockies. My question is,
Who is that?
Boo-boo. When things come into your place of business, do you see a lot of Voxes? And if you do, what is a common problem?
I see a lot of Voxes. There are no necessarily common problems. Not with a lot of other amps where it's like, okay, this always has to be done. This always has to be done. No. Most Voxes are tubes. Like we talked about, swap out the reverb tank for an improved sound, maybe swap out speakers for a different sound. But generally, there is no, this always needs to be done. Now, let me put an asterisk, because as we talk about this, the one asterisk is the TB6 circuit that we spoke about that was made somewhere in the early 90s. Those are really cool, 6 input, throwback to older ones. But the way they were laid out, they had a lot of serious ground and noise problems. So that particular model, if you buy one, you're going to have to spend a few $100s and have somebody update the ground scheme in it. But that's the only one. Everything else that's the CC1, 2, whatever, you're fine on all those. No known problems.
The one thing I would point out is these amps run hot. You know, there's little vents at the top. We joked a couple of weeks ago that if you bring a frying pan, you can set that on there and cook some eggs. I think you might be able to. Yeah. But, you know, I don't think there's any danger in it running that hot. And I certainly wouldn't recommend putting a fan or anything in it. But, you know, just be aware of that. Some people freak out, you know. Oh, my God, something's burning up in here.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and there is no ventilation, really.
Yeah, and don't put anything on top of the vents either.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I have to tell you, I've seen people trying to put like power condensers or stuff like that on top of it, and they're like, "What's that smell?" And just like, "Oh, your rack is freaking burning." You put it on top of the amp.
Yeah.
You know, something that I tell a lot of guys to do on these amps. Not tell. As a possible recommendation is a brown box Variac. Pulling them down to like 112 or 114. In my humble opinion, it usually sweetens them up. And it's probably because I haven't dove deep in this, but it's probably because the circuit hasn't changed much, but the voltage has over the years. It's increased. So I find that with a lot of vintage amps, they keep the circuit perfect to the original ones, but the voltage at that time was 108, 112 volts.
Yeah.
So I find that, you know, I usually like these things running around 112 or 114 as well. So, but not really anything to the amp, but.
Also, if you are looking to replace your speaker, a very good resource for that is Warehouse Guitar Speakers. They do a very good job of kind of explaining what could work in your amp and why. And even if you call them up, I mean, I've done that before.
Yes.
So
I've seen you do it.
Yeah. Anyhow, so all in all, a very reliable amp, an amp that is going to sound like it's supposed to sound. And you're going to get your money back out of it, too, because it holds its value really well.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your Voxification here tonight. I think we all have quite a few numbers and letters rolling around in our brains. But I think we have a better understanding of Voxes. And I think maybe an overall takeaway for me is a lot of times we romanticize vintage things, especially when it comes to guitars and stuff. And in this case, because of the extremely muddled history of Vox amplification, there really isn't a need or benefit other than just pure collectability if you have gobs and gobs of money to try to source out vintage stuff. This is one of the historic brands that is actually doing things very well in the present day. Fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
I'm just saying what you said, Rob. Just commit to it.
Yeah,
Jiminy Christmas.
again, you know me. I have to. The thing is the early.
By the
60s,
way, all the listeners have to sign a disclaimer.
Well, it's as we talked about the early '60s, especially the AC-15. That amp just doesn't exist anymore. It is.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like there's no you're without a very large amount of money.
Yes.
You're going back to
Yes,
something
you're right.
that, except for historic purposes, isn't necessarily going to,
And there are some really good options too. If you're going for that specific sound.
Oh yeah, good. Let's talk about that.
65 amps. Tony Bruno actually did a lot of research and development for Korg when they were releasing some of the newer models. Dr. Z. I mean, most of his are based on Vox circuitry.
You know what? You would think so, but as I found out, not really.
Not really.
The preamps are closer to Fenders.
I stand corrected.
The output section and power and phase inverter, typically Vox-ish, but most preamps are much closer to Fender circuits. Yeah, how about that?
I'm glad we had you here today.
Yeah.
I love being proven wrong.
Yeah, and I say that closer. It's, you know what? I let's say this. It's more of a blend of a Fender meets a Vox.
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not
that's
just copy and paste the Fender, but he does the where he drives both stages of dual triode together. And,
Any other current day manufacturers, boutique manufacturers?
not Matchless.
Oh yeah, Matchless.
Yeah, I was gonna say Matchless if you can find one.
Yeah. And whatever the guy that did that, Samson. I mean, he's had like 6 other amp companies since. I don't know the names, but So there's a whole series. Morgan, that's what he kind of, and he's definitely his very first amps. Many of them, the ones that kind of put him on the map, will say that got his name out there, and it goes amps on stage with country players. Were, I think, what the model's AC-40 or something like that. It's that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it had EF86 in it and all that kind of stuff. So so there's definitely plenty of guys making those.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Excellent question. All right, I think that's about it for that. I can't wait to do another. We've hit pretty much all of the major amp makers, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Did we
do
get
a
a Marshall? Uh-oh.
I don't remember doing a Marshall.
Ruh-roh.
I don't think you guys have done a Marshall.
So that's next, everybody.
Let's do it.
Yeah, Jared needs to go outside and take a breather for that one. All right, Jared.
Fire it up.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be back. And it's also good to be back so I can do my favorite little segment of the show called Would You Rather? This week's Would You Rather, we're going to include some Vox amps. So you got signed by a record label and you have 2 piles of equipment that you're going to take. And in this case, you can only take one pile or the other pile. And trust me, these are piles. However, there's a few diamonds in the rough piles here. So pile A of equipment you can take with you on tour, on a year tour, is a Fender thin line, right? A nice, light, good quality Fender thin line that's, it's a great guitar.
Thin.
It's got the wide range. It's got the hollow body. So it's got a thick sound, but a very good, nice, light body. But you have to take 3...
Nice light. Okay, go ahead.
You have to take 3 Beetle 100 watters with you. So Super Beetle Vox amp. I think they're AC 100s, right?
Yeah, let's call them AC 100s.
So you got to take 3 of those monsters with you,
Holy
and
moly.
you don't have any help to bring them in because you just got signed. You don't have enough money for a tech guy yet. So
All right.
So Fender Thin Line, 3 Super Beetle, 100 watters.
Okay, but those are cool looking amps, so that's a plus.
They are cool, but I mean, it's like moving refrigerators every gig. So, or the second pile, you have a BC Rich 6-string.
Yeah.
So it's a big old heavy BC Rich with 2 6-string necks, and it's it's that epoxy, or what do you call that? The
Lucite.
So it's lucite. So it's extra stupid. It's like 30 pounds or 20 pounds.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And
So it's the neon
amp that you get to
lucite
take-
double neck guitar.
There you go.
Oof.
So, but the amp you get to take with you is the AC-15, the hand wired, right? So, and kind of lighter, not super light, but a lot more, less trips and easier to handle than 3 refrigerators.
Yeah.
So, what pile are you going to take with you? You have to take one or the other. The Fender Thin Line.
That's actually a really good one.
It took 20 minutes to get through, but
Yeah,
hey,
I know.
man.
Well, but that's why we count on you.
So the Thin Line with the what?
The Thin Line with the 3 Super Beetle.
Super Beetle AC
These are the
100s.
huge, super tall stacks with the trapezoid.
Chrome holders.
Yeah, the chrome holders and the trapezoid heads.
Big chrome rails holding it all together.
Okay, Tanya Bolonsky,
Yes.
go.
Believe it or not, I'm going to go with option 1 because nothing would look cooler than 3 Super Beetles in the back line. The other thing about them is those racks. I could be mistaken, but I thought they had wheels on them.
They
They do.
And so you just
they
wheel
do.
them in. You wheel them in, and you got 3 monster amplifiers behind you. And
How many can I fit in my Hyundai?
Half.
you can put the heads in there. But yeah, that's that. I think, and I love a Telly Thin Line too. So
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, but just imagine that look of those.
Hey. Pfft. All right. Rob,
I hate these things. I just want to go on record. The Thin Line. Because what are you gonna do with a double neck lucite that you can't even stand there with? You'd have to get one of those Gracie stands and mount it on.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Because you wouldn't be able to hold that.
Cheaters.
Yeah. So there's no choice. It's the
like
Yeah.
the Bon Jovi stand.
exactly. You'd have to
Yeah.
have one of those. Just because
That's right.
Seriously, you're not going to stand there and play a show with that thing. You have to go right to the emergency room afterwards.
Hex, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a Telecaster guy. So Thin Line.
Yep. Okay.
Plus, I have a drummer that loves to carry heavy shit.
Yeah.
I
Your drummer's
use
awesome.
them.
I love that guy. He's fantastic.
Hey, Leo, I need that amp inside. Okay.
It's got wheels.
Leo is also one of the few guys that plays a really, really big drum, kick drum with no, with no hole with no sound hole, total
Oh, yeah.
flat front.
Yeah.
That's a big diameter drum.
Wow.
Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah. I'm a pretty big dude. I can handle a big old lucite 6-6. But I'm not. I'm going to definitely go with the big 3 refrigerators and the Fender Thin Lines because I can also handle those things. I can just carry one in each hand. And
One under
true.
each arm. I'll just-
Completely
Right.
assembled.
And the other one I'll just kick like a soccer ball. And
Yeah.
definitely
Todd?
the Thin Line, man.
What are you thinking, Todd?
Well, I'm torn because I don't like thin lines. I don't like the F hole in a small body guitar. I'm just not a fan of that. That's just me, man. I got things. I got particulars.
You're weird.
So 6-6 lucite is not weird.
No, that's weird too. I actually like that more than I like a thin line.
Wow.
It's
That's
just
saying a lot.
it's just an aesthetic thing. I don't like it.
You'd rather be playing with a red, transparent-looking thing with two necks.
No.
I like how he said it with such disgust.
Yes, I'm stuck. I'm stuck between two things I really don't want. But I do agree. Having 3 of those Super Beetles would just be pretty awesome. So yeah, I think we're all on Thin Line Island here.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we tried. That was one of the first times it's ever been completely unanimous. By the way, there's very few of those.
It's a good one though.
But it's just because we really like the cool old looking amp. That's what it comes down to.
3 of them.
Well,
Three of
he
them.
actually had me at Thin Line, and I just like, it said Tally. That's an easy pick for me.
Yeah.
When you said double neck loose sight, I'm out.
Yeah. All right, Jared, that was very cool. Thank you very much. Tony, we need to thank some people.
That's right, Todd, because at this point of the show, there's a special group of people we love to thank. These are our executive producers.
Yep.
Now, you might be wondering, what is this executive producer? Well, let me tell you, an executive producer makes this show possible.
That's right.
How do you become one? Well, it's very simple. You go over to patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate, become a sponsor, a patron of the podcast. Each level comes with some very, very, and I do mean very, nice thank you gifts. But as an executive producer, there's one thing more. Let's see who you
have your name read on the thing.
What are you doing? That's my line. I'm here to say it.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, what, Jared?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
That's right, your name read on the thing, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So special thanks to these executive producers. Moon Guitars, Vader and Pedals, John Halverson, Rick Calhoun, Trevor Gunberg, Elad Mizrahi, Macadee, Richard Kendall, Mark Garton, James White, Justin Jones, Anthony Gimalero, Bill Gola Guitars, John Esterly, Anthony Lathrop, Stefan Lamb, Michael Senchuk, Ken Sayers, Doug Christ, Darren Gregory, Tom Barazin, Rusty Sneeden, Ralph Gottschalk, Don Kloss, Gregory Randall, Brett Hogarth, Eric Hemmer, Stuart George, Michael Furman, James Bell, James Romer, Cameron Pampas, David Tyndall, Trevor Ellenberg, and Christopher Logan.
Right on.
Thank you, guys. Peoples.
Yes.
Yay.
But Todd, there's another special group of executive producers. Mm-hmm. We call them our grand poobahs.
That's right.
These are the creme de la creme, the top of the heap.
A number 1.
That's the ones.
I like that song.
And they also wear a fez. Hex,
That's right.
Hex, did you put your fez on?
No.
No,
I'll do it.
he's
I'll
not
do
going to
it
mess up
next
his
time.
hair. Are you kidding me?
Well,
Dude,
that's
this guy's
true.
hair. Let me
Why?
tell you about his hair.
I've seen his
actually
hair.
wearing-
Why?
I'm actually wearing a hat. Just my headphones don't reach all the way where it's at.
Yeah. You think he likes amplifiers.
Yeah.
Not as much as he likes his hair.
Well, if you really should be wearing the fez that was provided as part of this program. But
Here we go. I'll get it.
he's getting it.
I'm actually getting it.
I thought the disclaimer was
Take a
he had
picture of
to
it.
wear it while he was listening.
Well,
Yeah,
So when he
we're letting him
listens
off the
back
hook.
to this, he has to wear it, but not
Well,
now.
I think
If
he
you
should
saw
listen.
his hair, you'd make it a pass. He's got fantastic hair. I'm just saying.
We'll just wait till he comes back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how close I was to it.
Okay.
There we go.
Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. You're set. So special thanks to these grand poobahs. Tommy Manasco, Ricardo Iguereda, David Kaminga, Brandon Wound Pickups,
That's right.
Hex Mattos with a
Yeah, I know that guy.
with a fez upon his head. Michio Murakishi, Bob Crouch, Jack Cadian, Sam Jett, Tyler Rhines, LSJ Music Company, John Williams, James Pennington, Adam Johnson, Steve Keys, Cody Foster, Science of Sound, Brian Robison, Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, Michael Van Zant, Tim Nowak, Jonathan Daly, Martin Cliff, Sean S. David Poe, Billy Spitfire Unlimited,
Miss you, Billy.
Congregation Gear Demos, Paul Van Eppinger, Scott Sullivan, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups, and our poet emeritus,
Yes.
Matt Hart.
Matt Hart, yes.
Matt
Hart. All right. Thank you guys so very much. I always say we couldn't do this without you.
No.
Honestly, it just would be very difficult. So thank you. All right. We need to say a humongous thank you to the gentleman sitting across from me, Mr. Rob Chafe.
Chafe.
Mad Cow Amplification. Amplification. Where can people find out what you're doing, Rob?
Mad Cowification on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, I highly recommend subscribing to that.
That's a fun channel.
It really is.
Thank you.
And
what I do.
Hex, how about yourself?
You can find me on Instagram at Rocking Hex. Same thing as Twitter at Rocking Hex. And you can also check the website for Whiskey Daredevils, www.whiskeydaredevils.com. And 45 Spider, I think it's Bandcamp at 45 Spider.
Yes.
Nice.
We got to get a show with you guys.
Yes, we do.
Tanya.
Head over to pickguardian.com. Check out some of the wares I have available. But by and large, what I do is custom work. So shoot me an email. Let me know
If
what
you've
you're
got
trying
a
to
double
do.
neck BC Rich
Yeah.
lucite, we can get a great pick guard for you.
Oh, yeah. We'll do something really gross.
Add weight to it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, make a lead pickguard.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
then dropped at the bottom of Lake Erie.
All right. Jared, about yourself.
So find me on Instagram, jared.allen.brandon. Anthony Zimolero and I've been messaging and talking about gear and stuff. Why don't you message me too, and we'll talk about whatever.
Anthony
Nice. Good
Gimolero, hope you're doing well out there, buddy.
Yep.
Well, you can shoot me an email, Todd at theguitarknobs.com. You can also DM me at Instagram at guitarknobs. And please check out, if you have, as forementioned in the beginning of the show, an HX Stomp or a similar multi-effects unit, but specifically the HX Stomp. There's a lot of you out there. If you got one,
Yeah.
you need to protect those knobs.
Protect them.
Check out flinteffects.com and get yourself a stomper, okay? It's the right thing to do, and it looks cool. Also, check out the Valentinos. We got new stuff dropping, and the old stuff's still rocking. So check us out, and we want to just wish you a happy Guitar Week, everybody. And subscribe!
Yay.
I'm reaching for some cold refreshment.
Hey, it's me, Todd.
That's pretty convincing.
That's John Esterly's favorite thing to do. All right.
right,
Jared, did you have any Vox questions?
Nope.
On the board every day, all day long. Give me that pen. You're killing me. Oh, my gosh. Making a squeaking sound.
Imagine being his wife.
Jared, you love Voxes, don't you?
I don't know what to say.
And that's a cap.
Wow, we got all these people here. Rob and Jared and everybody. Apparently everybody really wants to care about Vox.
Test.
Oh, yeah, baby. Here we go.
Test.
Jared, good to hear you.
You got a copy of this, right?
Test.
Yes, I did. You might start this over.
Let me start this over.
How long you been doing this?
Too long.
And
away we go.
Not yet. Everybody don't want to have to.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. That'll work. All right. Right.
Completely quiet all the time.
No. Okay, wait. Stop. Hey, stop it.
Don't breathe.
Stop it. Okay. Well, so we got a full house.
And then some.
And then, Rob, you're unusually diplomatic right now.
What?
Test 1, 2, 3.
There you go. That's better. Thank you.
Jared,
sorry
can
about
you
that.
just go ahead and go
Sorry.
in the basement?
I know.
We're going to move your desk.
Yeah,
Okay.
take a can of pesticide with me. Is kind of old, but let me start over. Clack me.
I was wondering where this is going.
There's some weird noise going on.
How many Vox amps do you own, Jared?
That would be 0.
And how many amps do you own overall?
I don't know.
Yeah.
1,
actually-
2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Are you counting in thirds?
1, 2.
Yes,
He's-
1, 2, 3.
It's-
1,
it's-
2, 3.
It's a waltz?
It's the
What is
Jared
this?
amp waltz.
Oh, boy. And away we go.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.